Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
Now that everyone's had their chance to talk about what happened in the New Hampshire primary, can we take a moment to really think through what's coming next?
So instead of talking about New Hampshire and everything that everybody else was talking about, you and I took the other way out. And we talked about Yogi Berra. we talked about the great documentary and what a meaningful piece that was and how America was such a kinder place back then. Anyhow, now I guess it's time. So we talk about New Hampshire and we talk about what happened. Now that everybody's gotten it out of their system and it's going and it's going and it's going, Nikki Haley's got to have really good political consultants working for her. Because, man, she did a speech and she did a technique, a practiced technique. She came out early in the evening when the vote was at its lowest margin. And she, at that point in time, she was like within 5 points. And she made a speech that sounded like she won. Well, that got under Trump's skin like there's no business. I mean, he was really upset. She ended up losing by 11. But her point was when she got started in New Hampshire, she had 2%. She ended up getting over 40%. So she felt pretty good about the night. And now it's on to South Carolina. Well, she definitely lit Trump up. You know, first thing he does is he comes out and he says, who was that imposter that came out here a few hours ago and acted as if they had won this thing? And that was the primary direction of where his speech went.
I have a different take in that it's certainly clever to try. In the end, it's twice in a row. And so I don't know that 1 + 1 just equals 2. So she comes in third place in Iowa and then basically says this needs to be a 2-person race. So that's her in third place, acting like she's in second place. Then she goes to New Hampshire and basically says it's a 2-person race. I'm on the grow. And gives like a victory style speech. I will grant you it seemed to get under his skin because that wasn't the classy, calm, comfortable, gracious 2.0 Trump in Iowa.
Right.
So it definitely got under his skin.
Oh, yeah. She sent him right back to Trump 1.0.
But don't underestimate that he has positioned her as all mouth and no reality.
It's an interesting game. And so the next day, the following, of course, she also said some very interesting things, which people have heard now. Like the first party that retires their 80-year-old candidate will win the election. That was very clever.
Well, clever line, but Donald Trump doesn't show any physical or mental, emotional, or any signs of aging. So in other words, you can't compare him to Joe Biden.
So she has successfully moved into the Maverick lane. That's the John McCain lane.
Well, and everybody will say this in the media, Dave, that, Trump will never forgive her. I don't think a lot of the party will forgive her for using some of these leftist narratives.
Well, and that's where it gets really risky. So she's doubled down now since New Hampshire. She's basically going back to the thing is, well, if he's such a big shot, why doesn't he debate me? Okay. Now that's just two people. Come to my home state. Let's have a debate. So she's got all the rhetoric in the right places. And then she's come out and she's saying, did you see how angry he got? We've seen that guy before. See how mean he gets? We've got that guy before. So she's pushing every single button that she can. Now, I would never personally want anyone I cared for to be in a campaign that was on that edge, because that is like walking on a razor's edge. And there's nothing about that that's going to work. And she's probably, as Chris Christie said, going to get smoked in South Carolina. But for the time being, for this brief 4 weeks, she is commanding the Maverick lane, and she's bumping into the other guys on a car crash, and she's making serious dents in them for the moment.
Two forms of thought here. One, nobody thinks she's going to get the nomination, do you?
Maybe she's playing to simply be
the one with all the delegates and last one standing if he should get convicted.
If he should get convicted.
I get that. But for the most part, all right, so at some point,
Oh, hang on, one more. Maybe she's also playing, thinking that race is going to be extremely close, and this is what I want to get to next is 16 versus 20, but this is going to be very close. And if Republicans lose, she's playing for the "I told you so" lane. I mean, the only thing that's better than the Maverick lane is the "I told you so" lane.
Yeah, but she's further digging herself entrenched as the establishment money establishment candidate. And this gets to my question I asked you. I don't know if I asked you on a previous 1850 or on your morning show, which is my morning show, which is very confusing to refer to third person because it really doesn't belong to you or me. It belongs to the listeners. I digress. At some point, the challenge, and I'm not a Republican and you're not a Republican, and neither of us are ever going to be Democrats again unless, well, if you came back, I would.
That's for those of you that are new to 1850. Just since he's going to talk to the back of the room.
No, he's not talking about Chicago at all.
Okay. That's him speaking to Jack Kennedy, who he has a large bust of Jack Kennedy at the back of his home studio office.
Right. So the challenge for the Republican Party is going to be, what is your future? Right now, Donald Trump is bigger than the party. And unlike the Tea Party, you can't absorb him, nor will you be able to absorb his followers. So how do they move forward after Donald Trump's done for 4 years, or if he's done in the general election come November? What is the new face and voice of the party? Because most Republicans, and I think this part is over 50, not just the 36 that is fanatical about Trump. Most of the party does not trust Republican leaders.
Yeah.
And so that's a big problem. Now, as far as Nikki, I can just tell you personally, she lost me. She's lost me forever. Ron DeSantis has not.
Right.
I'm hoping Ron DeSantis learned a lot. You know, people forget. Mickey Mantle. Do you remember what Mickey Mantle's first number was? He was number 6.
Oh.
Because he bombed, went back to the minors, came back, 6 was taken, they gave him 7, and the rest is history. DeSantis can still be a Mickey Mantle. I think she has irreparably harmed her. She probably should have read the tea leaves. Her best plan would have been maybe be a little establishment. I can unite the party, get on the ticket, and then the party would have been hers in 4 years. She's out. I don't think she's done anything to win this primary, and I think she's destroyed her political future. So I have a much different view than you.
Okay. Now,
which I'm entitled to, and you're entitled to have a different one.
Now, I happen to think that you're most likely right. My only point is I'm very impressed. It's made an impression upon me. I don't mean I'm impressed in the sense of,
well, she goaded him and he fell for it.
I'm not impressed like, oh, that was the right thing to do, or it was, but they took a lane and they played Trump like a song in that lane. Now, is it going to work? I doubt it. Will there be recriminations and problems with that? You betcha. But in that window, the only way she had to go, she took the way, and her people got her to do it. That may make people actually despise her all the more. But that's what she did.
But it does concern me that America needs, the future of that party needs, a Donald Trump 2.0. They need the Donald Trump after the Iowa election, not the Donald Trump after the New Hampshire election. And if she can push his button and get underneath his skin, I wonder if down the road the media can start pushing those buttons again and get under his skin, because that's when he got self-destructive.
So when he made the statement, "I don't get mad, I get even," it's one of those things that we all kind of knew and really wasn't necessary to say anymore. And that's where they're going to play. I think that's where they'll come right down that lane that you spoke about. That we're going to hear that quote probably more than we've heard the dictator quote. That'll be the new one that gets played and played and played and played and played. Okay. So that's not music to a lot of people's ears if they're supporting Trump or they're hoping for a Republican victory and a unity ticket. And why is that? Because as we have been talking about, which map is it going to be, 2016 or 2020? Now, what's interesting is, in essence, the maps are the same. In 2016, the election turned on 5 or 6 key states with margins between 10 and 20,000 votes. In 2020, the election turned on 5 or 6 states on margins of 10 to 20,000 votes.
Difference is in 2016, it flipped Trump's way. It flipped back in 2020.
And the people who are back in Trump, who are very high on Trump, are saying this isn't COVID. We've had great legal changes on rules that will bring things back to voter ID, that will bring things back to shorter early voting periods. There's going to be a whole lot less possibilities for fraud. And we've seen this song before now. We're not going to get surprised this time. And they're very high that the 75 million people who voted for Trump will come back out. And without those exigencies of COVID and all that other nonsense, he'll win in a very close race. And so it will turn out to be the 2016 map. Okay.
Of course, there is Pathogen X floating around.
Yeah. And what they could play with that.
A blank check that they can assign at any time.
And so that's kind of the dynamic.
It's halftime here at 1850 Main Street. Time to freshen up that cup of coffee. You can start every morning off right by listening to Your Morning Show with Michael DelGiorno. Tune in to stations across America and online at the free iHeart mobile app. Get a head start on the big stories of the day every day with Your Morning Show on the iHeart Network.
Interestingly enough, the other night, Jesse Waters was going through this on Fox, and he's talking about the map and this and that. And the next thing he turns and says, and now let's hear from RFK Jr. And there's Bobby Kennedy Jr. live right there. And I'm thinking to myself, what has Waters got up his sleeve? Why would he default into that position? What's the game that's being played there? Very, very interesting. Well, Kennedy made the comment, look, I only got to get to 34% to beat these two guys. Think about it. We said, well, are you on the ballot? Kennedy said, I'll be on the ballot in every state. You don't have to worry about that. We're doing it right now. Every day we're hitting our signature numbers. I'll be there. I'll be on all 50 ballots. I've only got to get to 34% to beat the other two because nobody wants either. They don't want this rematch.
Yeah, and I think he definitely, when you say the Perot effect, it's like saying cancer, but it isn't anymore. The Perot effect, and there were a lot of reasons H.W. Bush got himself in that situation. Read my lips, no new taxes, looking at his watch during the debate.
Price of a gallon of milk.
All of that. But yeah, Ross Perot disproportionately hurt him and paved the way for Clinton. This time, it's not going to have that effect. And if you go with a weak candidate, in this case, the weak candidate is the Democrat, not the Republican. We're seeing that pan out. So Trump ends up being about 1 percentage point better with the RFK effect, but it hurts Biden disproportionately. I actually am of the ilk that believes this guy could do a lot better in Illinois than people think. He can do a lot better in the state of New York than people think. And he can do enough in Wisconsin to be disruptive. And I still think mathematically he can win Michigan. RFK is a big X factor in this.
He might be able to win Virginia.
Or Virginia would be another great state for him.
And certainly if he takes those congressional seats, the congressional districts in Nebraska and Maine, where you have 4 districts that give their electoral votes, 1 vote per each district to whoever wins that district. If he camps in those 4 districts and wins those 4 votes, he takes 4 off the Electoral College map. Now, just the other day, you were talking to one of your morning show correspondents. Was it Decker?
It was either Decker or Rory.
I think it was Decker, the White House correspondent for the, and he was talking to you about the map that he's got. Interestingly enough, the map that he's been playing out, and everyone's been playing out their map to 270. He's got Biden at 271, winning. Now, a lot of people have got that. Some of them have him tied. Some of them have got, they're repeating 20 or they're trying to repeat 16. But looking at it from where we are right now, most of the people that we have confidence that are trying to be objective on this see this thing being really, really tight. Well, if Kennedy pulls those 4 votes, if he pulls 2 votes off,
we're off to Congress.
We're off to Congress. There's never been a situation like this before because always in the past, the 2 major parties, when the third party candidate was coming up, they had such dominance in the major states that there's nobody that's going to get close. This is now adding a very viable candidate in all 50 states into a mix where you've got 2 people running who are both incumbents, so to speak, both running for their second term of the presidency. And nobody's thrilled about the match.
I'll say it this way. This should wait. Life is best understood looking backwards, unfortunately, has to be lived looking forward. And we're not in the prediction business. But this is shaping to me as an underestimated election cycle.
Mm-hmm.
They underestimated the expiration date of Donald Trump. I did. I thought there would be a good part of the party that want his policies and not him. And what I was blind to is they don't trust anybody but him.
And he's been doing an outstanding job. Now, I should say, when I overstated, when nobody wants either of these two. No, if you have a soft poll, I mean, in general, do you all wish you had somebody else to vote for? Yeah.
We have underestimated Donald Trump's expiration date. We have underestimated that notion that they're kind of sick of both parties. So the death of the two-party system is creating a little current in this. And I think everybody but you and I, quite frankly, I never like to make statements like that, have underestimated. Everyone's going to feel a lot differently about RFK once his moment on stage comes. Because let me tell you, I'm going to the stages he's on now. I'm going to the podcasts he's on now. I watched him sit down with Bill Maher and win his heart and mind in that time, as Bill Maher was trying to suck him into the gates of hell. But, I think just as we've underestimated Trump, maybe we've underestimated people that aren't interested in both. You're going to find everybody's greatly underestimated RFK. And that's the three of them together, like the perfect storm in the movie.
So
is going to shape this thing in a shocking way.
One of the things that Nikki Haley said that I think is a theme that's going to start to now emerge significantly is, if Biden is elected, you basically have got Kamala Harris. And I think that's a very sober thing to be said from the stage, sober thing to be said when all the cameras are watching. And then I watched Kamala Harris's response to that in a recent interview, and she said they'll say anything because they've got nothing, and they've got nothing to run on. They've got nothing to run on, and I had to laugh about that, because we've been observing from a policy perspective that the only two things that the Democrats are willing to talk about at all, that even are remotely close to public policy issues, are abortion and the legalization of more drugs. So she's saying that the Republicans have nothing. Well, obviously she's in her own silo. But I can tell you with absolute certainty that all we're hearing, other than Trump is Lord Voldemort returned, all that we're hearing is abortion and more drugs, abortion and more drugs. And then you pointed out that the president has decided that he's going to put someone up in the box from Texas, the woman who recently had to leave the state to get an abortion at 21 weeks because of a fetal abnormality that had a very high percentage certainty of the child dying, and she was at risk. And because of the confusion right now in Texas law, and it's the most confusing of the states because they have three different sets of laws that came into effect after Roe, and they have not litigated their way yet to get all the rough edges and all the big pieces moved out of the way. They've got to figure it out better in Texas. Well, this particular pregnancy, the 0.1% of the exceptions falls into that crack. And because the doctor in Texas, who was responsible for meeting a legal threshold to permit that abortion to happen, to preserve the life of the mother, did not use the right terms intentionally. There are certain terms that the law requires a doctor to basically say, in my professional opinion and judgment, medically, this is what the outcome is. And the doctor used a very different set of terms. Now, whether the doctor didn't do their homework, whether the doctor was setting something, we don't know. All we know is it got in the courts, and the court says this doesn't match the law. We can't do it.
But now somebody wants to come and make it political.
Yeah, and hyper political. And to a degree, it is, because Texas has got to work these things out. The point is, if someone was truly looking for resolution and to bring a country together, the abortion issue can be resolved. It can be resolved. It will take time. And it can be resolved to a point where not everyone's going to be happy, but we can be in a much better place than we were. Not perfect, and no one is going to be absolutely 100% satisfied. But there's a way to do this the right way after messing it up for 50 straight years. You'd think that the president of the United States would be interested in coming up with those kinds of resolutions, those kinds of solutions. Because if you think about it, all the states that are voting for him are getting the laws that they want anyhow. It's going in their direction. No, instead, he takes that woman from Texas and invites her to sit up in the box for the State of the Union address, so that the focus of the State of the Union address isn't going to be on all the things that Americans are concerned about so desperately, it's going to be about one thing. It's going to be about abortion.
I made this statement, and I'll stand by it. This is, at this moment, end of January, and I think it'll be official by the end of February. It looks like the general election is Donald Trump versus abortion.
Yeah.
Not Donald Trump versus Joe Biden.
Right.
Not Donald Trump versus Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Not Donald Trump versus the blue states or whatever election laws and yada, yada, what everybody wants to insert conspiracy theory. No, it's Donald Trump versus abortion. It really is. And that's just the way they want it.
And
because if they didn't have it, David, what would they talk about?
So people every day, they write us, they call us, they email us, they text us, they text
Nobody
you on the air.
writes me. Nobody calls me.
Oh, no, they're talking to well, you just started.
You're dying
reading.
to tell them the story of how I walk in one chicken place wearing a T-shirt for another.
No, okay.
That's what you're dying to tell them.
All right, that's a really good story in Nashville, by the way. No, people are constantly asking us at the public square, and I know that they're calling in on the new dial-in thing that talk back button, which is really cool for your morning show, and they are looking for some kind of hope, some kind of remedy, some kind of resolution on all of this. How's it going to work out? How's it going to work out? And many of those people are really hoping for a change in the administration. Now, I'm a nonpartisan. The organization I serve is nonpartisan. 1850 is a nonpartisan program. We're not going to tell people who to go vote for. We're going to tell people go vote. We're going to tell people to make your best decision based on the issues you believe in. But we don't tell people who to vote for. It's not what we do. We don't insult people that way.
If you email me privately, I'll tell. No, I'm kidding.
But people want to know. Now, this much we can say. In 44 years, that's 11 presidential elections, we've seen a lot of changes. Early voting is something that Republicans are still having a hard time figuring out. They keep thinking that they can move everybody back to paper ballots in one election day. Now, maybe they can, but it's not going to happen this year. And because it's not going to happen this year, whoever wins the early voting methodologies is going to win the election. Now, you say, well, that seems so complicated. It's really simple. And the reason I'm bringing this up is maybe the people who are calling us and writing us ought to talk to the Republican leaders that they count on and just ask them a simple question. When are you going to figure out that you're going to spend $2 billion on a presidential election, and it's going to impact all the down ballot races for the House and the Senate? Why don't you just hire more people than the Democrats hire to go out and chase down ballots, to go out and monitor the data to find out who's pulled an absentee ballot, what the status of that ballot is, what can we do to get that ballot returned, all talking about what can be done legally. This is all legal. To know where the ballots have been mailed, to know which ballots have been returned, to know the districts and where they are, and to contact those people.
To meet them on the battlefield
Yes.
and compete for the early votes, compete for the mail-in votes, the absentee ballots, and, meet them on the battlefield and beat them rather than just give your people the perception that their vote doesn't matter because they're going to fix the election anyway. I mean, that's what it's resulted in. Why don't you just punt on first down?
Let's run the math. Your biggest concern is 5 key states. Let's make it 6 to be safe. 6 key states. And let's just say that it's going to take you hiring 200 people in a state, and you're going to pay them $25 an hour. So that it's an attractive job. $25 an hour, pay them $30 an hour. And all right, you've got 200 people times 6 states, that's 1,200 people, and you're going to have them in this process for a period of about 5 months. Now, you're going to spend $2 billion trying to win the presidency. This little sliver of that budget is the whole game.
Well, it sounds like they had the money because they were bribing someone not to run in Arizona with enough money to have hired several.
Think about it. And the amazing thing is it's just that simple. Sometimes gigantic battles turn on the simplest of little things. You look at the Battle of Gettysburg and you look at the Battle of Little Round Top, Joshua Chamberlain. We've all seen the film, and if you haven't, you should. And Joshua Chamberlain received the Congressional Medal of Honor for his battle savvy and courage and strength that day, he and his forces. And when you go back and look at the history and you read a lot of stuff about that moment in American history, the battle turned most likely on one small thing that the Confederates failed to do. They had to go up the hill. They had the troops to go up the hill. They had the desire to go up the hill. They had the potential to win this battle. But somewhere earlier in the day, they ran into a problem with getting all their canteens refilled with water because it was a hot day in July. And the people that were assigned to go out and get the canteens all filled, and they got distracted, they got out of the way. Some of them ended up getting captured, and the canteens didn't get filled with water. And those people marched up that hill time and time and time and time again. Plenty of bullets, plenty of uniforms, plenty of flags, plenty of courage, no water. That's why in the movie Gettysburg, Ron Maxwell, as Chamberlain did his noble charge down the hill and then was standing toe-to-toe with one of the commanding colonels of the Confederacy and held him with his sword, the man said, "Please, sir, may I have some water?"
Wow.
Big battles sometimes turn on very small operative decisions that get made.
Did you know that you can hear Michael and David every day on your morning show on the iHeartRadio network? You can tune in daily or log on live to the free iHeart mobile app. Get a head start on the big stories of the day every day on your morning show. Then join us here where the conversation continues. Subscribe today so you don't miss a minute and visit 1850mainstreet.com to find out more. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.